Monday Night Football was the Las Vegas Raiders over the Green Bay Packers. Our takeaway from that game for both Green Bay and Las Vegas. Some bad injury reports here after Week 5. Justin Jefferson heading to IR, the biggest one. And how about those power rankings for Week 6? Who's at the top and bottom of the NFL? Coming at you right now.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Big ups to all the everydayers out there. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So, 13-17, 17-13. The Las Vegas Raiders improving to 2-3. The Green Bay Packers falling to 2-3. And, man, after such a beautiful... I got to start with the quarterbacks, and especially with Jordan Love, because this was a poor performance by Jordan Love, including the very last game-clinching throw into the end zone, an underthrown ball to an open receiver for another interception, his third interception of the game, Matt. And I want to know what you have seen from Jordan Love, because, man, we were impressed the first 2 weeks of the season. The first two games, he threw 6 touchdowns, no picks. And the 3 games since, he's thrown 2 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. So now it's a 8-to-6 ratio on the year, touchdowns to interceptions. He got, his receiver situation got seemingly better with his number one receiver back in recent weeks. And on this is insane. On passes over 5 yards on Monday Night Football, he attempted 11 of them. Jordan Love did. He only completed 3 and threw 3 interceptions. So he completed as many to Raiders as he did to Packers when throwing the ball beyond 5 yards, the line of scrimmage. So, which is supposed to be one of his strengths with a big armed guy, and he made a lot of bigger plays and bigger throws earlier on in the season. So, what's going on with the Green Bay Packers, and why are they playing to their opponents? It seems like they're just playing to whatever the opponent they have week to week.
Yeah, and real quick, big win for the Raiders. I don't look at them as a contender, but 1-4 for this team would be disaster. So you're at least still swimming. You're doing all right. I want to make sure we'll get to it, but I want to make sure we bring up Max Crosby. I mean, he was unbelievable once again in this game. But back to Love. So I'm going to make myself sound foolish, because after last season, Mac Jones's rookie year, I said, I guess that's 2 years ago. I said, Mac Jones is out of the woods. He's going to be a long-time starting quarterback. I don't know if he's ever going to be great, but I'm confident that he's a really solid, average starter. That was after his rookie year, I thought that. This past offseason, I said over and over, the 2 young quarterbacks, and I'm counting Love as young since he's hardly played, that I'm very confident will be starting solid, NFL quarterbacks are Jordan Love and Kenny Pickett, sort of the same way. I don't know if I want any of those guys right now. I definitely don't want Mac Jones. And I should have learned my lesson with Jones, not to say it again. I hope I don't say that about CJ Stroud or, some guys that Stroud's a bad example because he's playing extremely well. But, I mean, it's just you forget, and I always bring things back to the Steelers. Pickett just played his 17th game. I'm sure Love has played much less than that. The quarterback growth is very non-linear, I guess is my point. And it's much harder than people think. And it's like a pitcher that goes through the league and, boy, he tips his fastball. He tips his slider. Well, everyone gets a book on these guys. And to think that they're out of the woods after half a season is bonkers by me. But this also brings me back to Love, because one of my concerns with him coming out of college was he seemed to make the same mistakes over and over. And I haven't studied him enough to say that's still the case. And there's been a lot of time since he played at Southern Utah or Utah State it was. But if that's in his DNA, that worries me. What we've seen this year from him, though, is streaky. When he's hot, he looks really good and he'll bring his team back in the fourth quarter and make plays. But when he's not, he looks terrible.
So yeah, a couple of things there. One, of course, it's not linear for a quarterback's development, and you face different schemes, different players on those schemes. Maybe someone like Max Crosby's in your lap all night and makes it a little bit more difficult for you. And then maybe somebody sees another scheme that does well against you and your scheme and your team. And so more teams start running that against you, and you got to adjust the adjustments and all those things. So it's going to be up and down every year for a quarterback in some ways, but you don't want it to be a complete roller coaster. And that's what it seems like it is with Jordan Love.
Yeah.
And one of his problems coming out was throwing too many interceptions, and it was accuracy. It was like, okay, is it functional accuracies, or are you just chucking up a lot of YOLO balls, just to hope something happens? And it's a little bit of both, and we're still seeing it here. And that was many years ago now. And so if he's just going to be that guy, then it's going to be tough sledding for Jordan Love's career if he's can't put the ball where he wants it, or if he's just, I kind of don't know what to do here, so I'm going to chuck it up. So if it's one of those things, either one is bad. But I would say you could coach out of one. If he just is functionally not going to ever be accurate, then I don't know if that's ever going to be fixed. And so, and maybe it's a combination of all those things, because all the interceptions were a little bit different.
Yeah, and I wanted to look something up while you were saying that, and that backs up exactly what you're saying. So if you go to the EPA website, which you can fiddle with all the stats and all that, I wanted to see how they judge completion percentage, because they have a metric called completion percentage above expected, which I think is the best way to judge it. So if you're throwing the ball 50 yards downfield time and time again, your completion percentage isn't going to be as high as if you're a heavy screen team. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the worst guys in the league with their CPOE, completion percentage over expectation, are Anthony Richardson, Jordan Love, and then there's a gap. Like Pickett and Stafford are next, but there's a big gap there. Like Love and Richardson sort of stand alone as the worst. And Richardson has an excuse. I mean, he's only played X amount of college games and portions of 4 NFL games. We knew he was an accuracy issue, but Love, shouldn't he be more on the Hurts, Allen timeline of come into the league missing accuracy, but worked on it to get to at least average? You know what I mean?
You would think so. And the last part, you can't solely develop watching from the sideline. So the last bit of development definitely needs to happen on the field. And he's still only started a handful of games now in the NFL. So I think maybe you have some hope there that it's not like, oh, this is just going to be bad and up and down all the time. But you still have to see it, and you have to see that development. And right now, it's looking rough for the Green Bay Packers at 2-3. The Detroit Lions looking down on everybody right now in the North. Still plenty of time. It's only 5 weeks, going into week 6 here. Still plenty of time to get things right and win a lot of football games and be in the playoff hunt. But right now, watching that Monday Night Football game, some ugliness on both sides. I'd be pretty surprised if either one of these teams is playing, meaningful games in January.
Totally agree. And last thing about Love, and I would imagine he doesn't have as long a leash at his age, his contract situation, as Pickett or Fields or somebody like that. But if he plays like this at the level he's at right now for the entire 17 game schedule, you have to be in the quarterback market, right?
Yeah. Oh, yes. You always have to be in the quarterback.
I mean, you always are. Right.
You've got a guy, and even then you're looking for a backup. You're looking for depth. And so I would say absolutely in the quarterback market. And maybe the biggest problem with the Packers, we always focus on offense, quarterbacks, the fantasy football scores in the league. But the Packers defense for the second year in a row is so much better on paper than they are in reality. And that's a problem. And so I think there's some pretty easy scapegoats after the season. If you're like, okay, Bakhtiari injury, we got to figure out the offensive line in just a couple of spots. Some positives there on the line as well with guys like Zach Tom to build around, and Elgton Jenkins got to get him healthy. But quarterback, defensive coordinator, I think that's where the glaring eyes are right now in Green Bay.
We probably have some new listeners, but I apologize because I said this a lot in the offseason. But just pulled up their draft history. I mean, the resources on defense are bonkers for Green Bay, which makes this totally unexcusable from from an organizational level. I know they don't have an owner, but from every football person in the building, they should have at least a good defense. I mean, Van Ness, first-round pick this year. Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt, first-round picks last year. The year before that, it's Eric Stokes. The year before that, it's Jordan Love. Okay, but then Rashawn Gary, Jari Alexander, Kenny Clark, Demarius Randall, Clinton Dix, Deontay Jones, Nick Perry. I know these guys are retired, but you got to go all the way back to 2011, with the exception of Love, where their first-round pick wasn't a defensive player. You can't have a bad defense.
You can't. You cannot. And I mean, immediately you should see. I'm surprised Joe Barry's name wasn't the defensive coordinator of Packers wasn't trending on Twitter because of the play where he had Preston Smith in coverage and he just gets completely, turned around.
That's not good, right?
By Devontae Adams. Like, how does that happen? So a lot of things going wrong here with the Green Bay Packers recently, and they've just looked bad. And the Raiders thought were a bad team coming in, and the Packers looked worse in a lot of ways.
I picked the Packers to win the division. I think they have no shot.
That's what it feels like right now. Jimmy Garoppolo, very Jimmy Garoppolo-like performance there. You see an interception. You see a couple darts here and there. Josh Jacobs, 20 carries, 69 yards. Is Josh Jacobs the most disappointing fantasy player this year that wasn't due to injury?
Maybe. I mean, they played the Steelers early, so I really studied his early tape, and I thought he looked a little sluggish, and I blame the massive workload last year, plus not being in camp and all that kind of stuff. Like, I think that affected him.
Yeah.
I think he's moving better now, but I think the Raiders have a little bit of a problem in that they don't spread the ball around. I mean, Jacobs and Adams touch the ball a lot, and the whole world knows it. And Jacoby Myers does here and there. They're finally getting their tight ends even on the field, but they don't have a third receiver or a third down back of note. Like another weapon would go a long way.
Yeah, I don't know how Michael Mayer and Hunter Renfrow aren't better fits for both the way Garoppolo and Josh McDaniels operate an offense. So those are kind of head scratching. And clearly, by the way, Jimmy Garoppolo likes throwing the ball to Jacoby Myers. He was the leading receiver in this one, 7 for 75 and the touchdown. And when he was out of the game last week, Jacoby Myers was an afterthought in the offense. So Jacoby Myers, valuable fantasy asset when Jimmy Garoppolo is playing, it looks like right now. Yeah. And Josh Jacobs had a nice fantasy point total in this one because he got the touchdown, had 5 receptions on top of it, but not a lot of game breaking happening right now on the Las Vegas Raiders offense.
And Max Crosby is an absolute joy to watch. I mean,
yeah.
He is unbelievably good. I'm not sure if I'm ready to quite put him in the Bosa, Watt, Parsons, Garrett, truly elite tier, but he's definitely number 5, and he's banging on that door, and he has so much less help than those guys too. I mean, every scheme, every snap is centered around getting 15 helmets on him. And it's still doesn't matter.
A couple of interceptions there, but yeah, it was and it was all mostly because of up front. And it's, I mean, when you have a game wrecker like that, like Max Crosby is, it really helps a lot with the other 10 guys on your defense, especially in the back end. He's living in the backfield, 4 tackles for loss. He had the sack, he hit the quarterback other times. And yeah, he's a player you have to scheme around and can wreck an offense. So Max Crosby, player of the game. He was about the only thing tuning in for in that one.
He's got a weird body type too. I mean, he's extremely long, but still limber,
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next, we've got to talk injuries. Justin Jefferson to IR. Looks like Anthony Richardson probably following in there as well. Conner, Kelce, and maybe some power rankings, top and bottom. Next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And it shouldn't be an issue getting tickets to your favorite sporting event, right? It should be fun. You should be excited to go to the next concert, football game, baseball game, basketball game, comedy, theater event near you. Gametime is the fast and easy way to get those tickets with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. So you don't have to worry about getting those tickets for your next event. And it couldn't be easier. Not only the Game Time guarantee, but you get to see the view from your seat before you buy. So you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Tickets are all in prices, total upfront, no hidden fees. And with just a couple of taps, you get tickets and you don't have to filter through your emails. It's right there in the app and you got your tickets ready to go. There's zone deals. And when with the Game Time guarantee, it means you'll always get the best prices. And if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Justin Jefferson to IR. Wow. How things can change quickly in the NFL. And if you take Justin Jefferson out of the Minnesota Vikings, their defense is not a powerhouse. Their running game is not a powerhouse, to say the least. So you're talking about rookie Jordan Addison and Kirk Cousins trying to carry that Viking ship for a 1-4 team as it is. Kind of bleak season right now for the Minnesota Vikings. And I thought there'd be some regression, but they're regressing pretty hard right now, Matt. And so it looks like it's going to be probably the 4-week variety, and Justin Jefferson will be able to return, but he suffered a hamstring injury in Sunday's loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. And so at least 4 weeks, Justin Jefferson's out.
Yeah, and we actually had a conversation about it on Locked On Dynasty today, I guess it was. I think you could, for fantasy, I think KJ Osborne and Addison and Hawkinson are all very usable. But more importantly for our conversation is that's a very analytically based general manager, front office, and they knew, I mean, their offseason moves told us that they knew that they lucked out last year, that their win percentage was better than their tape. I mean, there was no doubt about that.
Or they, on the flip side, believed too much in the results and not what got them there, and their head was in the sand, and they thought, oh, we're cool, we're a 13-win football team, which I hope wasn't the case. But
I don't think that's the way they took it. I think they thought we got lucky. And you mentioned that they regressed back to the mean this year and things that they, luck stuff. Well, it went even worse. I mean, now they're like the unluckiest team in the league, where they were the luckiest team in the league before that. But the other reason I bring that up is, if Jefferson, clearly their MVP and one of the best players in the league, of course, with all respect to Kirk Cousins, Jefferson is more important. Is it time to start selling pieces for them? I think it's getting that point around the league. Go ahead.
Well, that's where I get back to the point that I don't think, because they're like too far into a new regime to be starting over. They should have now's not the time to sell and get resources and rebuild the thing. That was 2 years ago. That was last year. That was this offseason. The fact that they still didn't do it makes me wonder what the heck the process, what the plan really is. I'm not sure what they're doing.
So I kind of felt this whole offseason that they knew they weren't as good as their record, but they're going to walk that fence of, we're going to try to contend and try to rebuild at the same time. And that's a tough razor to walk on in the NFL. I mean, 2 or 3 injuries away, or this one, and forget about it, or a couple bad bounces. And maybe they thought in a not so great NFC, not a powerhouse division, we can maybe be the 6 or 7 seed, keep this thing going, find a quarterback in the process. And that's a dangerous game, and they're paying for it right now. But I think where the mistake was made, and I'm not even saying I like Will Levis, but if they would have drafted Will Levis in the second round, or Hendon Hooker, or Ritter a year ago, or I mean, if the Kellen Mond pick,
traded a day
for Lance,
Trey Lance, right?
Perfect. Something like if you trade Cousins now, great, you get an asset, but who do you even play? It'd be nice to hand it to a young guy and at least see what you got in the dude. They don't have that guy.
Anthony Richardson getting second opinions. Looks like a grade 3 AC joint, which is between the clavicle and the shoulder, on the top of the shoulder there. Throwing arm injury. So very likely going on IR to return as well for Anthony Richardson, and that returns somewhere between 4 to 8 weeks. Still don't have a ton of details there. I think a more interesting one here is Travis Kelce, because even though he came back in that game, this might be a high ankle sprain. So it's a foot/ankle injury. Still trying to figure out what that one is as well. But I mean, that puts the Kansas City Chiefs in a tough spot.
Let's talk about both of them, because maybe I'm just being too hard on Kelce. And I don't care about Taylor Swift, the commercials and all that nonsense, but he doesn't look like the dominant force this year that he's been. I mean, he looks like a good player out there. He doesn't look like an uncoverable stud that, is going to destroy the league like he has basically every game of his career.
Right.
Now, that might just be injuries and availability, but their lack of receivers is problematic. They don't have a dangerous Kamara out of the backfield, let alone a McCaffrey or somebody. Like, talk about getting a lot of attention. He's always going to, and at some point, age is going to catch up with him. If it's this year, I'm sure the Chiefs will still be competitive, but I could see it actually being a down year for the Chiefs, which might be the dumbest thing I've ever said. I might go back in 2 months from now,
Well, a down year for the Chiefs, there's a floor that they can't drop below. So, maybe they'll win a Super Bowl. But I think they're clearly a deadline team where they got to add something on offense.
I tend to agree.
I saw something. I've seen a few people now talking about how maybe the Swifties and the Taylor Swift angle there'll be enough rise up that the NFL can fix the turf situation, because maybe the Swifties is what the NFL needed to finally get rid of, because it was Justin Jefferson and Travis Kelce both. It was like a fleeting issue on turf. So they have a lot of power, the Swifties, and a lot of power in numbers. And the NFL paying attention to them. They're trying to market that direction. Maybe that's what we needed all along. James Conner out several weeks.
Okay, apologize. So I think that offense is still highly functional with Minshew, who I've always been a fan of. And I think that coaching staff is a clear upgrade and getting a lot out of that group. And now even Jonathan Taylor can get in the mix, whatever. But I heard Robert Mays and Nate Tice on their podcast talking about this. And I think it applies to Richardson in that apparently the Bengals had this conversation with Burrow. The Panthers had this conversation with Newton. Certainly Buffalo had it with Josh Allen. Like, you come into the league, you don't have to score a touchdown on every snap. You know what I mean? Just save your body a little bit. Learn how to slide, how to conserve yourself. You have a great future here. We got to teach you how to stay on the field.
And we talked about it with Love, too, in the development path and how, you can't learn everything from sitting and watching. And especially when you have someone, and this is what the Niners ran into with Trey Lance. Okay, you have one big injury. Okay, well, now you miss half a season. Who knows? Maybe more potentially. If this is a throwing arm injury, they're not going to rush him back. And what he needs is to play more. He played 1 year of college football, so now you miss half season. Well, now you go into year 2, and it's like, okay, well, now he's still got to go through growing pains again that he didn't get to his rookie year because he had the injury. And you start to get into that weird cycle of he has to play because he needs reps, but he's not ready to play.
Not quite good enough to play.
Yeah. And so you get into that whole, and obviously the Colts are in a different situation, the 49ers, so they can allow it a little bit, but I don't think Ballard and Steichen want to sit there for 3 years and kind of wonder what they have at quarterback. So that's what
can get away from you quick.
Yeah, it can hurt for a young guy in his development as well.
I mean, they need every practice rep they could get. Guys like Lance and Richardson that come in with ability but not experience.
Yeah. Couple more injury updates, and let's talk power rankings as well next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. No matter what happens on that first $5 bet, you get $200 more to play with. If you've ever been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now this October. App is super easy to use, wide range of betting options for those extra $200, including spreads, player props, over-unders, parlays, not just NFL. You got a ton of college football, and an unbelievable amount of ways you can bet on the NFL, playoff baseball, of course. NBA and NHL seasons are coming as well. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off this NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Matt, what is your professional scouting report on a gentleman that goes by the name of Amari DiMercato, the most likely starting running back this week for the Arizona Cardinals with the James Conner injury knocking him out for at least a few weeks, it looks like?
I hate that you asked me that because we just recorded a Locked On Dynasty before you and I started, and I flat out said, sorry, folks, I don't know anything about him. But for the fantasy community, grab him no matter what.
Starting running back.
Yeah. I mean, there's a saying in the dynasty community that real dynasty nerds will be like, any RB on a 53, just put them on the back of your lineup because they're going to get a shot sometime. Perfect example. I know it's a functional offense, so I want him on my roster. I also think, I know we're going to talk power ranks. I'm worried about the Cardinals being able to withstand respectability. I mean, I think that just once a couple Cardinals start to fall, as they inevitably will, their depth will push them back down to the 30th best team in the league, the 31st best team in the league. And even see that in games where they're highly competitive for 45 minutes of the clock, 50 minutes of the clock, but they can't keep it up.
Yeah, I don't have a scouting report on DiMercato as well. I know he split carries with Kendre Miller, the third-round Saints running back at TCU. I saw a couple of his carries. Has some ability. Undrafted running backs can be really good. He's got youthful legs. So I'm sitting here thinking, man, I'm going to put in a waiver claim in my fantasy league for Gus Edwards, giving me 10 carries and 30 yards a week. That's not a lot. I'd rather roll the dice on this undrafted guy and maybe catch lightning in a bottle. So that's where I'm at with him. And we'll see. I don't think it's going to be a big difference maker for the Cardinals season because it was already going in a certain direction, but they were, they relied on James Conner quite a bit. And he's a really good runner, really tough runner. So that's going to be something it's the heart and soul of what James Conner is for the Cardinals is going to be hard to replace, even if you don't see it wins and losses. So I don't know if the rookie undrafted guy can replace that, but he can give you some production for sure.
It's funny you said that though. I mean, some of these undrafted or even like Pacheco and later drafted running backs, they play like their hair's on fire. The
kid in Denver, McLaughlin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, Jalen Warren here in Pittsburgh. I mean, these guys play with reckless abandon, like their hair's on fire.
And this is unlike any other position in the NFL where the replacement level is high. Undrafted running backs are good.
They might not last, but they'll give you all they got.
Should never be surprised when. Now I'm blanking on his name. James Robinson, right? Comes out of nowhere. Right, and all of a sudden, he got value. And then all of a sudden, guess what? Now he disappeared. I don't know where James Robinson is right now, but maybe that's
don't always last.
Off of the Arizona
Could be.
Power ranking. We got
I jotted some.
1, 2, and then I think 3 through 5 is where it gets really interesting.
See, I looked at it another way. I put your Niners on their own tier. I think they're in 1, and I'm not.
I would have had your head examined if you didn't. I don't think there's any way you could look at what's happened in the first 5 weeks of the season and not think the 49ers, and this isn't a homeward thing because I cover the 49ers.
It's obvious.
I'm locked on 49ers every day. Make sure you subscribe.
Check that out.
They're annihilating everybody.
Yes. I heard Matt Harmon call them the Death Star. They're just blowing up planets and generation. So
42 points on the Dallas Cowboys defense that was supposed to be the best defense in the league.
And I don't think I don't think it's controversial. They're 1. Of course it's not. You're crazy if you're not. But I don't think there's anyone else on their tier. I mean, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4-ish teams that are in the next tier. But I think San Fran is clearly on their tier. And I need a one-word answer from you, please, with your vast Niner experience. What is better, San Francisco's offense or San Francisco's defense?
Wow. Well, first of all,
or is that like choosing between your kids?
I mean, just a disrespectful question for the 49ers special teams unit, Matt.
Well,
who's 100% kicking accuracy on field goals and extra points this year. The rookie Money Moody. Mitch Wisnowski's dropping the punts inside the 20. I mean, they're just firing on all cylinders. And
Well, you can pick them if you want.
I think the defense has carried the team for so long. And this is the way I look at the 49ers, because we're calling Brock Purdy Brock 30, because they're putting up 30 points a game now.
No matter what,
with 40 in some cases, with Brock Purdy at quarterback. So many weapons. They can beat you in so many different ways. Who's scoring 30 on the 49ers defense?
0 teams. I mean,
it's and the defense seems like it's getting better. The offense has been the most impressive, just because it's been behind the defense in past years, and it's not anymore.
One word answer: offense or defense?
Offense.
Okay. I thought that might be like choosing between your kids, and I'd pick my daughter over my son.
Come on. Well, the offense has the MVP of the league right now, man. So got to go with the offense.
Yeah, he's a good running back.
They got the runner-up too as well. So
okay, real quick, back to power ranks. We'll wrap this thing up. But so I think clearly the tier behind San Francisco includes whatever order: Philly, Buffalo, Miami. I'm still going to put Kansas City in there, even though I don't think they're humming on all cylinders, but respect. And then Dallas, Detroit, and this is going to be a weird one. Cincinnati, ? Could they? I mean, you can't put them up there because they've been terrible. But if Joe's right, they could be the team that's ready to leap up the power ranks.
I mean, we talked about it before this weekend's games, breaking it down. It's like all they've showed us is bad this year, but they could flip the switch. And if they have flipped the switch, they go from what they were 19 in the locked on in the locked on rankings last week. And I just voted for him this morning, and I'll retweet when it's out. The whole voting is not quite done yet, but I will retweet that soon. It'll be up on my timeline at BD Peacock. You can check out what the Locked On hosts voted for the official Locked On Power rankings. But I think they're right. They got to be back in the top 10 if that switch is flipped and you believe it. Maybe need to see one more week, but if that switch has flipped, I'm putting them ahead of all the teams that are ahead of them right now, or last week: Browns, and of course Packers for sure now, and Chargers, and probably Jaguars, probably Seahawks even. And so we're talking top 7, 8, 9 team.
I mean, like at Halloween, if we have this conversation, they absolutely could be 4.
Yes, but it's going to be harder to get them into the top 7 because of how the season started for some of the other teams. And so 49ers, you said Eagles too?
I didn't have a 2, but they probably would be my 2. Although I don't think they've played their best football yet.
That's how I voted for them. That's why I think the top 2 it's Niners, Eagles, unbeatens. I think they belong 1, 2. Chiefs is hard for me. I could buy the Lions vote for 3. I could buy the Dolphins vote for 3. I could buy the Bills vote for 3. And it's weird.
Like the Milano injury.
Bills beat up on the Dolphins, but then the Bills lost the Jaguars and have looked ugly in 2 out of their 5 games, but look great in 3 out of their 5 games. So even though the Bills beat the Dolphins, I think I voted for Dolphins 3.
I get it. I can understand that. I mean, and I always look at these things. Where are you right now? I think that Milano injury is massive.
Yeah. Milano is one of the injuries we didn't get too deep into,
Brutal,
but he's out for not season, right? But for
I haven't heard, but it's going to be extended time, I think is what we saw. It is the term they used. That's
tough for them. It's important. He's absolutely an important piece for them on defense. So, and the worst team in the league goes to?
I think it's a 6-team race of the garbage tier. Do any of these not belong? Giants, they absolutely belong.
Yeah.
Denver belongs. Chicago still, even though they're showing signs of life.
Chicago's climbed to the top of the garbage tier.
Okay.
Though,
Yeah.
For me.
And I would have Arizona at the top of the garbage tier, but I fear that they're falling. Carolina's firmly in the garbage tier.
Yes.
And the Patriots are in the garbage tier.
Patriots are in the garbage tier below the Raiders now, and I think the Raiders are just right there where
they're out of it. They're out of the garbage tier.
Where the Bears and Cardinals are. I don't think there's very much difference between those 3 teams. They're going to be all together for me. Raiders have won that extra game, and we just saw it on Monday night. So some I would have put the Raiders below them potentially before this week. So they're right there, but they're just above them. But the bottom, I think, has to go Carolina because they haven't won a game. Denver has, but Denver might be there, and Denver might sell everybody at the trade deadline. And
I think they're selling everyone this week. I was listening to Cecil Lammy. I keep referencing all these other podcasts, and he basically does what I do with the Steelers for the Broncos. And he said, any Broncos you want, go send it out there. And I immediately sent a tweet out and called my Steelers show. what would it cost to get Pat Surtain,
Yeah,
or Justin Simmons, right?
The funny thing is, all the fan base is going to talk about Pat Surtain. I think he's the one guy that doesn't get moved because
they shouldn't trade him.
You'll build around him, and if it's a contending team, you got to get at least 2 first-round picks, or else it makes no sense at all. And does anybody give up two firsts for Surtain? I mean, maybe you could see it depending on some injuries. He would be worth it for some teams that are going to be drafting very late in the first round. We had that conversation with the Locked On 49ers as well. So that's an interesting one. But I think guys like Jerry Jeudy are going to be long gone. How about Jerry Jeudy to the Kansas City Chiefs, Matt?
If it wasn't division, I almost brought that up earlier. If it wasn't division, and maybe Denver doesn't even care. Like,
I bet they don't care.
Anyway.
Right. There's evidence that he's not that good anyway. And they're probably not too worried about it. He did get his 5th-year option picked up, right? Which I bet was questionable. Which means he has 1 more year left on his deal. That's not super cheap either.
Mm-hmm. But I bet like Jeudy, Sutton, Garrett Bowles, Simmons, gone.
Simmons is an interesting one.
Yeah.
He's a really good player. So
really good
player. More trade deadline conversations coming up, no doubt, on this show. Let us know, guys. What do you think? What's your no hedging bets? What's your top 3, bottom 3 power rankings? I got Niners, Eagles, Dolphins, and at the bottom I've got Panthers. And I think the Broncos might overtake them for that 32nd spot, but those are the bottom 2, and I think New York Giants is.
I'd say there's probably a bottom 3 the more I think about it. Panthers, Giants, Broncos.
Giants are just playing awful right now.
Awful. They don't block a soul.
No, they don't look like there's no path to them getting better or being competitive, which is a very bad sign for a team. All right.
Last question. Could their head coach be in jeopardy after winning Coach of the Year?
I mean, yes. All it takes is one really awful year, and if ownership thinks they have a bad plan, like did they really believe in Daniel Jones? And
that's what I'm saying.
Like you had me sign that check for that guy. I don't believe in you anymore. Maybe
if Daboll's like, I'm standing on the table for Daniel Jones and Saquon, and that's going to be our foundation, and then you win 2 games. Like, I don't. Yeah, it's not so good.
Yep, it's anybody down there. The jobs are in jeopardy for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
He would get hired though. I think as well.
Oh yeah,
he'd get another shot.
Yes.
He should have just gone to. If the Bears would have just hired him in the first place, we could have avoided all this, man.
There you go.
We could have fixed Justin Fields earlier, potentially. Although, I don't know, maybe he's not working his magic with Daniel Jones this year. So, all right. Anyway, we got to go. We'll be back tomorrow. We've got a mailbag on tap. So get us your questions about anything going on in the NFL at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL, or drop a question in the YouTube comments. Make sure you're subscribed up. Matt and I back tomorrow. Peacock and Williamson.